He's good. All right. In the chat, I'm going to put a link to Haley's plans. And let's go ahead and open those. Okay, so Haley, if you don't mind, take about a minute or two and give us an overview of the instruction for next week, and then talk through maybe places that you're stuck or places you would like feedback. And again, if we're not talking, let's go ahead and mute our mics.
Cool. Okay, next week we're diving into linear relationships. My goal is that they'll be able to define what a linear relationship is, and also be able to explain like why should we care about knowing like what linear relationships are, and like how does knowing that something's a linear relationship when we look at it help us understand things. And the biggest things I guess I'm looking for feedback on is I'm struggling on like how to frame that question of like why do we care. I'm just like wondering like how should I ask that question. And then also wondering like what my expectations should be for like how well they can define a linear relationship, because like the perfect answer I have down at the bottom is a linear relationship is a term used to describe a straight line relationship between a variable and constant, like blah, 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 like a lot of terms right there. And so I'm wondering like maybe I can only get to defining it in this lesson, or maybe I should only focus on like why do we care in this lesson. So wondering if I have too much in my lesson for my goals. And then my main activities, Cameron, I'd love to get your feedback on this since you like saw how I did this week. I'm thinking like the main activity during the lesson is going to be where like after we look at some graphs together and like talk about like, is this linear? Is this not linear? Like, what does that mean? I'm going to ask the students like, okay, like go Google search a line graph, and then you're going to come back and like share your screen and show us the graph you found and like what's it looking at, and is this a linear or non-linear relationship? So like getting the students to go out and try to like figure it out on themselves and seeing what they come back with to like give me an understanding. Like if they come back with a pie graph, then like clearly I'm not explaining this well. My Black Excellence portion, I'm gonna ask for students' feedback on like what kind of graphs and information do you want to be looking at going forward in the future, since we're gonna be looking at graphs essentially all semester. So starting to get an idea of like more of what they want to learn about. I asked that this week, but I'm going to be a little more intentional about it this week and how I frame it, I think. Because I got a lot of like anime responses, which is fine. But yeah, okay. There's my spiel.
All right, and we'll dive just into a consultation for the next about 6 minutes. You can ask clarifying questions or consult with ideas or things that you could add to your plans to approach some concerns.
So, Haley, I know you were asking great, all that you have going on right now. I think it's cool. So, one thing though that you said you wanted to help, you wanted some information on just how to help them to understand why they should care.
Yeah, and like how should I like explain that or like ask that question, you know, like It's a simple question and yet I want to get my message across.
Right, as to why they should care about these linear relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's how it affects them on an everyday basis. Now, mind you, I'm terrible at math, so I don't know if I'm even right there. But how does this
it's tricky, right?
It's super tricky. Geez. Okay, let me keep thinking about that a little bit more. But I just wanted to make sure that people wanting to hear.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is if maybe there's a, I always get kind of nervous when it's kind of like, all right, go Google search this and come back with something. I don't know, maybe that's just a me thing or something. But I was just kind of wondering, like, maybe if there's a way for you to narrow down like what they are going to be looking at, if there's like maybe a particular website or a particular set of graphs you might want to look at too. I also think that with linear relationships, particularly, and being able to kind of define linear and nonlinear graphs, I wonder if there are ways that you can really make it super relevant and maybe like almost answer the question for them of like what value this has, because being able to understand and read graphs is something that goes very far into being able to understand like what COVID cases are like, or the disproportionality of like police brutality depending on different ethnicities or different races. And like, so I think just like that ability to understand and read a graph, like being able to find specific resources that maybe line up with that, and having them, like, I'm just thinking like maybe a way I would do it is I would get like 5 or 6 different graphs that are linear and nonlinear from like different sources, and have students like really go through identifying those and explaining like not only like why is this linear or nonlinear, what is the relationship between the lines that you see, and like how does this affect your life, like maybe being able to really like punch it in on that specifically too. I just think that you'd have to find it and you'd have to like make sure there are those graphs, but that's what I was thinking about that second activity.
If you scroll down, I think underneath that week's plan, I put a bunch of graphs. Am I wrong?
Okay. Okay,
so like I was kind of thinking along that lines too, like when I'm introducing the concept and whatnot, I was going to talk about corona because I feel like that's such like an easy way to like understand it. Like, well, corona is not a linear relationship. Let's look at that. But yeah, I was thinking like giving examples first before I sent them out on this Google search. But I'm going to see if I can find like maybe a website that has like a Mod Podge of them, or maybe like certain terms that they should put in the Google search engine so that they don't get like a bunch of pie graphs or something.
And maybe Haley also,
definitely tailor specifically what you want them to search.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron. You're a genius.
And
yeah,
and I was just gonna say maybe also because I love that you have some information about about animals and pets in when your graphs. I just think maybe if you give them that opportunity to, I mean, I don't know if you've been able to kind of personally see what their interest may be, but just giving them that time to look and see the graphs or the information that they're interested in. A lot of them may be interested in sports, or especially with the the lack of sports that we're having, something like that. I'm sure you'll have at least a couple that can relate to that, and then see some graphs based off of the viewer turnout of the NBA bubble, or something like that. Something to where they're like, okay, I see that now. I just know that a lot of our students are they make those direct connections with specific things that they are like, heck yeah, I'm with it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think you guys are right on, and I think that's really quality feedback because it narrows what students have to sort through and allows them to practice the skill more, right? Like we want them to practice the skill, not get lost in that search. And so a couple things I'm thinking about, Haley. One is like, as the teacher, you making the connection on how it's impacted your life. And then also like at the end, they can say, now, after we know what a linear equation looks like and how that manifests on a graph, can you find one based on these search terms that impact your life? And that could be like an end result. I'm also thinking about like almost like a criteria for using the vocabulary, what makes something linear versus nonlinear. So like a linear equation or graph allows for 1, 2, 3 steps. Here are these few things. And if they can use the ones that you set up or that you found and actually analyze those themselves, then they'll get more repetition at what makes it linear versus nonlinear. And again, it's almost like, I almost picture like a Google Doc here's the graph, here's 4 questions to ask yourself. Is it a linear equation or not? How do you know? Cool. Next one. And so I think you already have a lot of the framework. Last thing I'll say is like, sometimes we create a lot for students, right? You have those perfect answers are really cool. Let those drive your planning. So ask yourself now, because you have great models, what would it take for me to get a student there? And that actually might take you 2 weeks instead of the 1 week, you know, and that's okay because they're going to get deeper into that content than just trying to like show it. That's it for us. Haley, what are you sitting with as a last word?
That just all of you like really synthesized my ideas and said everything I needed to hear. So thank you for that. And I was just going to ask Chris, are you typing in this feedback also in the box, or like, do I need to like be frantically taking notes, or like, are you on that?
I'm on that right
like
now. Yeah. I don't know if I captured it all yet, but I'll get it all in there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys.